Kenya. Let's talk about Kenya. He mentioned that it was one of the best performing stock exchanges we saw last week. It continues to be the agricultural sector that drives the performance of the stock exchange.
Correct. I mean, two reasons that stand out. Obviously, the weak shilling, export a lot of their tea, and they've had some decent rains in Q3 and Q4 expected to be quite good as well. So expectations of good profits going forward, really helping that sector. I mean, rallied 9.5% last week. Williamson Tea, one of the biggest contributors to that sector, rallied 22%.
Neil, would you be calling a turnaround in the Kenyan market? Because, of course, it has been so hard hit this year that everyone's waiting for that turnaround. Is it too early to say, or is it really just a case of what's taking place on the global scene?
I think most definitely global scene. Way too early to tell if it is a definite turnaround. It's been nice to see that market see some respite. It's been viciously handled over the last couple of months. But I think a lot of it depends on what happens with the European debt crisis. Seems to be that they have an agreement, but it's good to see that we have a bit of a rally going on in the market.
Nigeria, of course, also making that top 5 gainers list last week. Good news for Nigeria, and many were so concerned and highlighting the fact that whilst fundamentals for the country were so good, on the other hand, the stock exchange really underperforming what we were seeing. So good news that that market turned around. What are you making of the correction there?
Well, the correction was largely due to the fact that there just weren't any volumes in the market. Obviously, when you get redemptions in the large funds that participate, the large foreign funds that participate in these African markets, and there's no liquidity, it drives the price down quite drastically when they have to get out. So it's good to see that the global markets are rallying, which will definitely help the likes of Nigeria, which was very positive from our side to see that we had some decent earnings from the banks, which is one of the biggest sectors in Nigeria. Very pleasantly surprised. Tough economic environment to operate in, and performed very well in Q3. Yeah.
And a competitive space. There's so many banks there, all vying for a small piece of that banked population, trying to grow their loan book, trying to get more retail investors. Just very quickly, what do you make of those results that we've seen coming through?
We were very pleasantly surprised, as mentioned earlier. I mean, tough operating environment in Nigeria. Not as bad as the global stage, but as I mentioned, I mean, it's the global markets and the global environment that impact on the smaller markets like Africa. So we were very surprised with the larger banks that reported. They seem to be the ones surprised to the upside the most.
On the other end of the spectrum, we've got the likes of Ghana sitting at the bottom, bottom 5 performers for last week. Also results coming through from that banking sector. Pretty mixed picture when we're seeing the type of results filtering through, either flat growth or growth that declined for the likes of Standard Chartered Bank.
Yeah.
That market posting some solid gains at the beginning of the year, it seems to have filtered out.
Yeah, firstly with the listing of Tullow Oil the first half of the year, I think that's why everyone tried to pile into the market. And then we had the global crisis, which affected Ghana, so that slowed down dramatically. Nice to see there as well that we had some good earnings from the likes of EcoBank Ghana. Cal Bank rallied on the back of those last week, as well as did UT, expecting some decent Q3 numbers. SEB a bit disappointing, but still slight, a little bit of growth there as well. So we were quite happy with that.
Given the fact that the market has retreated, it's turned around a little bit, somewhat now, but given the fact that it has retreated from its highs at the beginning of the year, and Ghana's growth story is looking promising, is this a good entry point for Ghana?
I think that there's definitely value to be had in a lot of these stocks, not only Ghana, but as we've been speaking about in Kenya and Nigeria. We had some of the bigger funds that were buying in the beginning of the year when the valuations were much higher than they are now, from a price earnings point of view. So there definitely has to be value in a number of these financial stocks, yeah.
Botswana also coming in last week, sitting in that top 5 list. The likes of Turnstile really driving that market. Anything to take out of the performance on that front? Unfortunately
not. I mean, the only real movement that we could see there was Turnstile. It ended flat. Botswana, one of the smaller markets in Africa, so when a big cross like Turnstile went through, like last week, 20 million shares at 134, that tends to have the impact on the market. So nothing much really to read into that market, unfortunately.
Egypt, also one of the top 5 gainers last week. It seems that a lack of bad news was good news for Egypt's stock market.
Correct. I mean, it's finally nice to see. We've had 3 weeks of no news in Egypt. They were saying no news is good news. So we've had a couple of protests there, but they've been relatively peaceful. It's nice to see that the police and the protesters haven't been clashing. The parliamentary elections seem to be going on schedule, so all looks good for now in Egypt.
Mixed picture when you're looking at Zimbabwe. On the industrial front, we've had a lot of strong earnings, strong results that have come through. We've also had some positive news flow, which has helped the industrial index. But on the mining index front, which of course is highly geared to those three stocks, that index falling back. What do you take of the type of news flow that we've heard from Zimbabwe and what this points to us, what this says about the economic picture?
Yeah, well, there as well, no bad news last week, which is quite decent to see out of Zimbabwe. We've had the Securities Commission saying that the CSDP should be formed by June 2012, which would be cast nice for the stock exchange. That's very good to read into. InScore said that it's planning to list SPAR next year. Hopefully that'll boost liquidity, which is quite nice to see as well. Yeah, so some decent stories out of Zimbabwe. Quite happy for now in that market.
Right, so I'm going to throw you one interesting question. We always ask for a stock pick from the market commentators. If you had to have a stock exchange pick for this week, which market do you see outperforming for the week?
Well, it's difficult to tell. I mean, Nigeria seems to be doing quite well, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit more upside in Nigeria. We've still got a couple of earnings to come out there. It all depends what happens in Europe, though. We saw a little bit of a sell-off this afternoon when I left. The market was still down. Nigeria was also down a little bit. So if we can get some follow-through in the European and the US markets, we'll definitely see Nigeria performing quite decently.
As you say, very geared to what we're seeing on international markets. Thank you very much for your time today.